If you're really looking to improve your speed and power qualities, so you're your fastest and most explosive self come fight night, you actually need to be in the gym during fight week. Now, I know a lot of boxers are probably listening to this and thinking, this guy has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. Why would I want to be lifting during fight week? Shouldn't I just be focusing on recovering, cutting weight, making sure I'm not too sore for the fight? But what if I told you that using what's called a priming session around 3 to 4 days prior to your fight can acutely enhance your speed and power performance? You'd be jumping at it, right? And now these sessions aren't really designed to create long-term adaptations. The window for adaptation is just far too small. But what research consistently shows is that short, low volume, high intensity exposures to speed, strength, power exercises immediately prior to competition can actually acutely enhance your performance through increased nervous system output. So I'm not going to dive too much into the underlying mechanisms because most of you are probably just thinking, tell me what to do. But I will give you just one point that research really supports and that I really recommend for everyone to do. And that is you actually need to be strong. And I'm not talking about being a power lifter, but if you actually really want to benefit from these sessions, then you need a really good base level of strength. You can't just rely on priming sessions alone to increase your speed and power. They only really work if the groundwork has been laid with proper strength and conditioning leading into the fight. And this also obviously helps with reducing your risk of injury by having a base level of strength. So what I want to reiterate is that you cannot rely on these sessions alone. You need to have a good base level of strength to get the most out of a priming session. So what's actually included in a priming session? These sessions, like I mentioned, are very low volume, but also very high intensity. We're talking 1 to 2 working sets, rep ranges around 2 to 6. For our lifts, we're aiming for above 80% of 1RM. And then for any plyometric and ballistic activity, this needs to be done at maximal intent. And there's something also worth noting here, and that's around using isometric variations and more specifically overcoming isometric variations. I think these can and should be a big part of these sessions depending on what exercises you've used going into these sessions. Obviously, if they're going to be applicable to you or not, and if you've done these before. But I think isometrics and overcoming isometrics are really good in these types of sessions. And with these priming sessions, we want high neural activation and very minimal muscular fatigue. So reduced range lifts like box squats, elevated trap bar deadlifts, pin presses are all really good options, but we can take this a step further by using those overcoming isometric variations. And this is basically where we push or pull against an immovable object with maximal intent. But because the muscle length doesn't actually change like you would in a normal lift with a concentric and an eccentric, you get a really strong strength and power stimulus without the fatigue you'd usually get from normal heavy lifting. And that's exactly what we want during fight week. And now a lot of people ask me, what exercises should I actually include in those priming sessions? And honestly, most people get this quite wrong. Priming sessions should not, and I repeat, should not include new exercises that you haven't done before. Number one, you shouldn't be learning new movements during fight week. It should be focused purely on just what you have done and what you have experience in, because your coordination just won't be there. This just means you won't be able to produce real intent to get everything out of those sessions. With the priming sessions, intent is everything. So the way that I approach this is pretty simple. I take what we've already been doing in the S&C sessions leading into the fight, and we just make small modifications. So I'll chuck up on the screen basically 2 example sessions that I just mocked up essentially for a boxer that's around 5 to 6 weeks out. The focus on here is speed, power, maintaining some strength whilst keeping fatigue low or as low as we can. And the same themes that we'll be using for the priming sessions. Really emphasizing speed and power, not trying to cook you too much from a muscular standpoint, and just generally making sure you're primed and ready to go. And so this is the 2 sessions on the screen. Like I said, main focus being that speed, power, maintaining some strength, reducing the ranges of some lifts, using some overcoming isometrics like we mentioned, and then obviously getting in some accessory work. And then what I like to do is we pick the highest value exercises from those 2 sessions and build out our priming session. And so because the athlete or this hypothetical athlete would have been doing these movements and exercises for weeks, the coordination is really developed, meaning that we can actually have some good intent with the exercises. And like I mentioned, intent is everything with these priming sessions. I'll chuck up on the screen what that example session would look like combining the 2 sessions into this priming session. Now you're probably looking at this type of session and thinking that is just way too much for fight week. And I agree, there's a fair few things to get through. But like we mentioned, the volume is very, very low. We're only doing 2 working sets. The reps are kept very low. And this means after you warm up, this session shouldn't take more than 45 to 60 minutes. If you feel like some of these exercises aren't beneficial or maybe some of your accessory work shouldn't be in there, then of course, just take that out. But The key is that whatever we've been doing for the last block, that should make up the majority of that priming session. So by selecting the exercises from those 2 sessions, essentially you can get the best of both worlds. You prime the neuromuscular system without the unnecessary fatigue that you'd get from maybe some of the accessories, maybe from some of the extra volume. So when you come into fight night, your speed and power are exactly where we want it to be. Guys, thanks so much for watching. As always, if you like this video or enjoy these breakdowns, make sure you like and subscribe for more ways to improve your boxing performance.